How's it going, everyone? May is National Mental Health Awareness Month, so in honor of that, I wanted to make a video discussing some of the things that I've personally dealt with in terms of my mental health. Today's video is going to be a little bit more personal and a bit of a heavier topic, but I wanted to discuss it because I wanted to help erase the stigma that is centered around talking about mental health. Just really quick, if you're new to the channel, welcome. My name is Tyler Warlow, but I go by the Mengineer, and I make videos on how to improve your life through your confidence, capabilities, and overall happiness. It's a pretty known fact at this point that men are disproportionately affected by mental health, largely due to the stigma that surrounds it. Men are taught when they're young that you can't really feel any sort of negative emotion. You've got to be strong and you've got to be the provider. The unfortunate side effect of this is that it leads to a lot of men not really effectively learning how to actually address what they're feeling, and they just end up repressing a lot of their emotions until it ends up coming forth in some really outrageous way. For instance, there is a disproportionately large rate of suicide when comparing men versus women. In 2021, men were almost 4 times as likely to commit suicide. So by talking about my own mental health struggles and how I've dealt with them, I hope that it helps to normalize men being honest and straightforward with the emotions that they're experiencing. And I hope that this inspires or encourages some of y'all who might currently be struggling. For those of you who are struggling or may struggle in the future, I will have several mental health resources linked in the description of this video. So first, I'm going to go through my story, and then I'm going to talk about some of the ways that I learned to effectively deal with my mental health. So this story starts when I was relatively young. I was only about 7 years old. My father got really sick with kidney disease. His father unfortunately passed away from it, and he nearly did as well. The earliest memory that I have of this is my dad and mom going to the hospital and getting the phone call that my dad was sick and being hospitalized. Once my father was released from the hospital, he then had to undergo dialysis. First, he did this at a clinic, which then eventually moved to at-home dialysis. You're essentially taking the patient's blood from their body, filtering out all the toxins, and then putting it back in, which the body has a really hard time dealing with. And as a kid, I really did not understand this at all. All I really understood was that my dad was sick, and all of a sudden we couldn't do the things that we used to do anymore. I'm actually the oldest of 4 children, and it's kind of interesting to see the differences in how this impacted us, because me and my second youngest brother both remember this, but my 2 youngest siblings don't really have a strong memory of this. So I feel like it definitely impacted me and my next youngest brother a little bit differently. I remember doing a lot of different things with my father when we were young, and he would take me and my brother to the driving range and take us out to golf courses and put up with us knocking 5 balls into a river. And then we would just keep playing our games, and then all of a sudden we weren't able to do that anymore. We weren't able to go outside and play catch with Dad because the sun was really difficult for him to stay out in. I also have some pretty scary memories associated with this. One of the biggest ones that I can think of is when my dad was doing dialysis at the clinic. He was in there for a while. We came to pick him up, and he started to walk out. I got really excited. I saw him from the car. I turned around to let my family know, and then when I turned back, my father was collapsed on the ground, surrounded by doctors and nurses. I legitimately thought that my father had died. That's really a pretty scary experience for a kid that you can't really describe how that affects you. So growing up, my dad unfortunately wasn't able to do a lot of the things that he was able to do before he got sick. And as a result, being the oldest kid, I personally felt like I had to help out. I had to help take off the load from my mom and dad. Now, this was never something that they asked me to do. It was just something that I ended up feeling because of the circumstances that happened. I felt like I had to be the one to help my siblings out. I had to be there because unfortunately my dad couldn't be in the same way that he used to be. So as a kid, I never really processed a lot of what I felt and what I went through. Like, yes, I had those scary moments, but I had to be the one to look out for my siblings, which in the moment was fine. But as I got older and I never really learned how to deal with those emotions and those high stress events, it definitely started to have an impact. I would get in trouble in school for acting out, or falling asleep in class because I was so tired. And then as I got into high school, things started to get worse as stress started to build up. Another thing to keep in mind with this whole situation was my family was considered low income. And that was while raising 4 kids. So we were the kids that got the free breakfast at school, we got the free lunch at school. So another big thing was, for me, I wanted to be able to have a job that whenever I have kids that they would never have to go through that. So I convinced myself that money equaled happiness and that I would pay for that happiness for my kids. And so I convinced myself that I had to get the highest paying job, not necessarily a job that I liked. So I decided that I was going to do chemical engineering. And I decided this my freshman year of high school because I took a chemistry course and I took an engineering course, which was really more like woodworking. It was like, yeah, these seem like they go well together. I'll do chemical engineering. And really threw myself into my schoolwork, but didn't really have the greatest habits surrounding that. I still tried to go out all the time, tried to hang out with my friends, but I still had to get good grades too. So this ended up resulting in me staying up far later at night than I really should have been as a teenager studying, because I was out earlier in the day with friends, staying at a friend's house. And all this ended up culminating in some pretty difficult last years of high school. I would get extremely stressed and have these just really bad outbursts toward my family, my mom especially, in my senior year. But one of the biggest ones was I remember getting so angry and so pissed off and tensing every single muscle in my body to the point that I caught all the increase in blood pressure caused me to spontaneously have a really bad nosebleed. And that wasn't because I was exercising or anything. That was literally just because I got so angry and so stressed out that I raised my own blood pressure so high from tensing my whole body that I did that to myself, which isn't healthy. Like, not being able to deal with stress to the point where you're causing yourself to have physical reactions is not a healthy way of dealing with stress. No matter what anyone tells you, you need to learn how to effectively deal with that, which at the time I did not. So again, this culminated in a lot of fights with my families. I would get into screaming matches with my siblings. I would fight with my mom constantly. And this was pretty prevalent up until I graduated high school. I was very ready to get out of that house because I truly thought that, like, my family didn't like me. I didn't want to be around my family, which is not the case now that I'm older and mature and recognized what was going on then. But there was a lot of anger and pent up stuff from when I was younger that I never really dealt with. So I go to college and everything seems to get better, right? I go through my freshman year and my sophomore year perfectly fine. Yeah, I got a little stressed here or there with passing classes, but honestly, like, there was never a point where I really thought that I would fail a class. I got stressed, and I started to realize that I might not like it that much. And along came my junior year, when I really struggled. I went through kind of several things all at once, right? So my brother entered the hospital because he has chronic health conditions, and there was a lot of questions at the time whether or not he would make it. My father was also recently in the hospital, so I had two very scary incidences with family members, neither of which I was able to go home for because I was having to put in so much work into my engineering degree. So I felt a lot of stress and a lot of guilt around that. And then I started to realize, like, I really didn't like engineering that much. I was having to put in so many hours, and at the time, I was gearing up to enter an industry that regularly had you working 60 plus hours a week. And not being able to go home and be with my family despite their health circumstances and still just having to work through that really made me question my path going forward, which caused me to enter a really deep depression at the time. It was so bad that I was only sleeping like 4 or 5 hours a night. I couldn't eat anything without feeling like I was going to get sick. And I'm someone who eats a lot. Like, ask my fiance. But I could not eat anything without feeling like I was going to get sick. I was having physical symptoms in relation to my depression because I felt like I had wasted all my time in my college career, felt like I had paid for all this, and now there was no way that I was going to be able to turn back. So that was a really difficult time, and that lasted a few months. During that time, my fiance was, at the time, she was my girlfriend, but my fiance let me know that she was worried about my health, my mental health. And so she encouraged me to take advantage of the counseling that my college offered. And I did. And guys, honestly, that was one of the best decisions that I've ever made. Because going and talking to the counselor, I was actually able to process a lot of what I was feeling. Because a lot of the things that I have told you now, at the time, I really didn't realize was why I was feeling the way that I was feeling. Like, I just told you all that I didn't feel like I was able to be there for my family. I didn't realize that at the time. But through discussions with my counselor, I was able to realize that that was really what the deeper issue was, and that I felt like I couldn't be there for my future family if I continued down the path that I was going down. And I really think that maybe I could have come to that realization on my own terms, but I think it would have taken a lot more time. So I continued to work with this counselor. I did this for, I think it was 3 semesters, and she really helped me to come up with effective coping mechanisms for me. So now I have several things that help me to cope. Really, the main one being exercise. Typically, if I'm feeling stressed out about something, I go to the gym and suddenly the problem really feels so much smaller. But also several techniques to help me deal with stress, like in the workplace, on when I have tight deadlines, and also just what my future path forward would be, something that I actually felt satisfied with. And that helped me a lot. It helped me develop effective coping mechanisms. It helped me to recognize the feelings I was feeling and be able to put an actual name to what was going through and the thoughts that were going on in my head, rather than just being like, I'm angry. Because that's not helpful. You can say you're angry, But what does that do? So after 3 months of counseling and a lot of work with my counselor, I was able to stop doing counseling. And luckily, I am now in a pretty good place. I'm at a job that I really enjoy. I'm confident in what I'm doing. I'm trying to make valuable content to help other people like me with videos like this. So I hope that this is being helpful to you, and that I hope that if any of y'all are struggling, that you see that this is not something that you go through alone. We've all been there. I'm in a much better place now, but it took a long time to get there. Like I said, this journey started when I was 7 years old, and I did not really learn how to effectively deal with those emotions and stuff until I was in my junior year of college. And I honestly think learning about that stuff now has set me up so much better for my future. For high stress events, like whenever I do have kids, whenever I'm doing work that involves a lot of hours, rather than repressing that emotion and then taking it out on the people around me and potentially damaging some really good and honest relationships because I have a toxic mindset of, no, you should keep everything repressed because you've got to be strong. I've learned how to actually address the more underlying issue, and that's allowed me to be much happier overall. So don't let any of these guys on the internet who are just being like, no, you need to be a man and put those feelings aside, tell you that that's the right thing to do. Because eventually that will come to bite you in the butt, like it did with me. I damaged some real relationships in my life that I had to work hard to repair, and I'm still working on. You can still be the provider, you can still be whatever type of man that you want to be, but you need to learn how to effectively deal with whatever it is that you're dealing with. Actually address the underlying issue, because that's going to be what helps you to move forward. That's going to be what helps you to put aside this thing that has been holding you down, rather than just burying it and thinking you've solved the problem when it's going to resurface its ugly head eventually. So I know this is a longer video, but just real quick, I said at the beginning of the video that I would talk about some of the ways that I've learned to deal with my mental health. And these are things that personally work for me. These won't work for everyone. You've got to find what works for you, because there is no one size fit all to mental health. But for me, like I already said, exercise is going to be one of the best things that helps lift my moods. It helps the body to release natural chemicals that help you to feel better and reduce stress. So that's one of the big things for me. The next thing that I did was address the big thing that was causing me a lot of stress. Like I said, I was thinking I was going to be stuck in this engineering job forever that was going to make me work tons and tons of hours, and I was never going to be able to see my family again. So I worked hard to find a company that wasn't the norm. A company that actually treated me like a valuable person and saw my family circumstances for what they were and didn't just treat me like a number. I worked very hard to find that, and I've also found a company that really does that for me. So that's helped take away a lot of the stress that I was feeling. The last thing that I'll have for you is lean on your support system. Be honest with the people in your life that you really care about, whether that's family or friends that you're really close with. I've had some pretty honest conversations with the guys that I went through college with. They know the things that I went through with my depression, and they were there to support me through it. And that's going to be a way how you know who your true support system is. The people that are going to be with you through those really difficult times. So lean on them, talk with them, discuss things that are stressing you out, get their perspective, get their insight, get their love and support. because having that support system in that community really helps to take a load off your shoulders when you need it. That's going to bring us to the end of this video. I know that it was a longer one, and I know that it was a heavier topic. So thank you if you stuck around this long. I appreciate you watching the video. But again, I hope that this has helped someone out somewhere. I will have mental health resources linked down below. Please take advantage of them if you or someone else that you know is going through difficult stuff. If you found this video to be helpful or informative at all, please be sure to leave a like and subscribe to join me in this journey. If you have any of your own thoughts or stories that you would like to share, leave a comment down below. I like to make sure that I read all of them. If you're interested in more videos like this one, where I talk about health-related topics, be sure to check out this video right here, where I talk about how to stay active with a desk job. And if you're more interested in my most recent videos, be sure to check out this one right here. But until the next time, this is the Mengineer, signing off.